again, relationally, what is my job here? My job is to point them, to guide them, to leave them with Jesus. It is not to maintain their membership in my church. If I'm doing that, if I'm doing my job and somebody chooses to not come along with me, I might struggle and suffer. You know, people might be leaving who have lots of money, which I know isn't ultimate, but it still matters, right?
Right.
You might see a mass exodus of people who simply don't want to follow along as you've done your best to hold tension and going, I think this is how Jesus wants us to go, biblically, theologically. And when they go, I'm not listening to you, or I've listened to you and I don't agree with you and I'm going over here. Did you fail?
That's what, yeah, because the non-anxious presence is the one that stays connected both to those who agree, but also to those who disagree. I have a tendency, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't talk about but like, we're a smaller church. I don't know how many families I can afford to lose without thinking, what's my next job I have to take, right? I think that's a real reality for people.
As somebody who has lost half of their church over the last 4 years, I feel that, and I resonate with that, and I have my own moments that where anxiety feels like panic. I think what we keep coming back to is the two things. One, am I being wise or am I being foolish? To the best of my understanding and ability, based on both in my polity of the people who God has surrounded me with in terms of elders, deacons, is our understanding that we're still heading in the right direction. Are we living out are we living in reality? Yes, people are leaving. We have to make real decisions in light of that. However, if we still feel like we're being faithful to Jesus, I don't think we're failing. I didn't sign up for it. We all sign up for a church that rapidly grows up and to the right. But there is also ultimately, if we're practicing what we're preaching, and I just assume all of us who are listening to this are, if we're all practicing what we're preaching, in the end, whatever we do in allegiance to Jesus is right, come what may. We talk about that all the time. Consider the cost. Here's the cost right now. Wonderful, kind, sweet people who see the world different. We may even translate it as they have found themselves overwhelmed by and complicit in things that we might consider to be sin and sinfulness. They are going to choose to take their life elsewhere. I don't know what we can do in response other than be invitational, just as Jesus was to everybody that he was around. They all abandoned him. And I'm not saying that we're taking on a martyr's complex. I'm saying in faithfulness to Jesus, that there are going to be times and seasons in all of our ministry where, because we're doing the right thing, we find that people aren't going to go with us. Yeah, I don't like it.
My spiritual director keeps asking me that question. Are you satisfied serving Jesus? Like, why are you in ministry?
Man, that's a great question.
You know, like what is your wins? You know, and he's like, ultimately, if it's anything else other than that, like, let's work through this. That's an attachment. You know, and let's work through the hard work of surrendering that attachment. And that's also what's been hard for me, because I want to hear from him 5 ways to make this a better, 3 ways to fix this. But a lot of times the answer is genuinely surrender. You know, just, God, I can't. You know, Holy Spirit, I need you to empower me, not just in this moment, but, you know, I can't imagine a moment where I don't need this empowerment from you. That's why I'm grateful, in a sense, that I think this is really refining the church, but I think it's inevitable that this is a very refining moment for pastors. It's very difficult, you know, and I'm just like, I'm grateful though that I haven't had loads of success early on, and I'm grateful that I'm in this, like, you know, a younger pastor in a really tense time, because I just can't help but think, hopefully, as I keep on the straight, you know, and the narrow, the way of Jesus, like, this will make me become more and more a person of love, you know, in ways that if this didn't happen, maybe I wouldn't have become a person of love in 50 years.
You can step back, and I mean, if we're going to work through the lens of the Enneagram, I mean, I can imagine that for you, there are a few things more painful, and y'all have gone through some things in terms of family stuff and things that are like, this is the worst. But the second worst is you being perceived as somebody who's divisive, right? As somebody who pushes people away. Mm-hmm. In the same way that for me, as somebody who most resembles a 3, outside of something horrific happening to my wife and kids, there's nothing more terrifying than me than being perceived and feeling like a failure.
So this last year, I have transitioned from being a 7 to a 3. Like, I realize how much I relate to a 3, and I think part of that is My dad's a 3, and I think I just won't be like him. Not, positive or negative. It's just, nobody wants to be just like
Sure.
her. Well, they do,
Yeah.
but they don't,
Yes,
So
sir.
I've been recognizing that. I think I've been decorating myself as this, nice little 7, but I think at the core, what has been hurting me the most is being a failure this past year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and having a smaller congregation, people saying, like, literally the last service of 2020, we had nobody there. Most people cancel that service, December 27th,
Yeah.
let's just all rest. It's like, no, so we actually made it a prayer service. It was very, very good service. It was literally just prayer night. And it wasn't talking about prayer, it was actually praying. But the moment before I went up stage, the guy who's a brand new visitor, what did you do wrong? How come nobody's here? Literally said that exactly. It pierced my soul because I was like, that's exactly what I think everybody thinks. And you just validated that. Yeah. What did you do wrong? And I just had to bring that to the Father that whole next week. And I had to call my spiritual director about it. But, I was able to lead or whatever. But it was like, you just nailed it on the head because that's what I think. And I want to grow beyond that. I want to be a mature follower of Jesus that can but then I think the whole family systems theory stuff, I'm very an enmeshed leader, but I think my solution is to be a detached leader. And that's not the solution either. But I wish I was more detached. I wish I didn't care, but I do. Yeah. And it rocks me to the core. And I think that's why this whole situation, it's like if I speak truth into this the way that I'm perceiving it, is everyone going to be gone?
Well, it's a vicious circle, right? Because you're like, if I was more detached, I'd be more successful, not even on the outward, but in terms of my own journey. And I just don't, maybe the reframing is helpful. Whatever God exposes in me, I wonder if it isn't primarily not, and even in maybe repenting of sin, it's not an exposure of my failure. It's an invitation into the only way that's going to help me become who I actually am. That's about the only thing that helps me keep my sanity sometimes. This is the path, it's a Mandalorian. This is the way, right?
Yes.
And for me, in ways that I don't regret, it's kind of what everybody says, like our greatest fears. And I'm like, I don't like the last 4 years have been filled with some of the worst moments. I didn't even know what anxiety was. And now in experiencing it as a companion in the stretch of the journey, it's making me more of who I'm supposed to be. I look at my boys and I go, God, just give me enough to hang in there, because if it's going to change things for them, and if it's going to change the world around me for the better, then I also believe that you're changing me for the better, just in ways that I didn't sign up for and I particularly don't like.